What's that? Whoa.
What's up?
I'm tripping balls here. No, what's going on, guys? What's happening? Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Lake Father, Lake Son. But let's talk history today. Joining us, first time, please welcome my baby brother down there, Mr. Smart. That's my baby brother. He specializes in history and Canadian history and all kinds of stuff that I don't know a whole lot about.
I find the smarter you are, the more you realize how little you know. So this should be an interesting experience.
You're always learning. And everybody, most of y'all know Sheriff here. He specializes in Civil War history and American history and
Basically, the Civil War.
A little bit of everything on the American side. So this should be a treat. Derek is also going to join us. He's on his way. He's down there in the chat with y'all. But Northern Ohio Railroad action. Welcome,
Welcome,
guys. What's up, Rick Howell? What's up, Cheesecake? My fault. We had some technical difficulties, but we got her going. So, yeah. Where do we want to start here? Mark, why don't you introduce yourself and
all right,
so just say a little bit what you enjoy and.
Someone in the chat said history teacher. I'm not a history teacher. I studied history at Brock University, and I promise there will be no homework.
Expect homework.
There'll be a test after this.
Yeah, I studied Canadian history at Brock University, and I at this around the same time I wanted more in-depth live experience. So I find when you're looking at the problem with history is that you're too focused on what we call dead men and dates, repeating endless list of like scrolling Wikipedia, and it's inhuman. It removes the humanity from history. So I started as a reenactor for the War of 1812, which some of you might know about, but I guess more popular.
That's where the red coats
in Britain.
Shit out of them blue coats.
It's not taught because of Napoleon. In the U.S., it's not really taught because they had a lot of things going on, and the war didn't end so great for them, depending on how you look at it. But but I started that. I also took French because Canadian history there's a lot of French. Although if you don't use it, you lose it. And then I took Mohawk language course as well, which was really, really fascinating.
Oh, that's cool.
But now I didn't end up doing anything career-wise with history. It's just a hobby for me. And now I have the factory job, and I just do it as a hobby. So,
way smart. Like I always tell you folks, this is the smartest one of the boys.
Well, I can't seem to figure out the chat and the video at the same time, so I'm not the Donnie of the group.
If you have a question, I'll put it up like that for you. We'll do like Q&As. Okay. And we all know Sheriff. What do you specialize in, Sheriff?
I don't specialize in nothing.
Okay, you just know a little about a lot of stuff.
My favorite war to study was the Civil War.
Civil War.
I have to leave for 1 second. Continue.
Go ahead. So the Civil War.
Yes.
That's
it's not a specialty or anything like that. It's just something that I've been around all my life.
Now
I grew up literally 2 miles from the Chickamauga battlefield.
Okay. Now, for some of us simple-minded folks, that's when the North was fighting the South in the Americas.
Yep.
That was the Civil War.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. What's up, Wicked? Happy birthday, Wicked.
How's it going, everybody?
Whee! I don't know. All right on. So, Civil War. Did that? No, I guess that didn't involve us much. What do you know
Canadians
about
did
the
fight.
Civil War?
They did.
We
fight.
did fight.
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't know that.
Canadian
It wasn't
people
like
went down
it-
south, but
It wasn't like the Canadian Army or anything like that. It was actually volunteers.
We didn't have Canada. Wasn't a thing though back then. Were they? It was still the Queen, right? It was Great Britain, or was that after that? Were we our own?
the argument can be made that Canada existed as an entity long before the Civil War. It's an argument that I make that few others do. We just
Okay.
didn't have our own constitution. Just like
Yeah, I
we're a
thought-
family, we just didn't own a house yet.
Okay. That works.
That's
I
how I
thought we
look at
were all under the Queen before, like the end of
Well,
the
we're still under the
1800s.
Queen. But yeah, we didn't have our own constitution.
We were a colony, right?
There was a place called Canada with people called Canadians living there. So
True North, strong and free, baby. No, I mean that's cool. I like our history. I just don't know a whole lot about it. Let's talk battles. Is there any big battles from Civil War that really stand out with you, Sheriff?
Well, yeah, there's a couple. I mean, there's Gettysburg, which is the most one of the most popular ones that people know.
I've heard of Gettysburg.
And then there's Antietam, which is another good battle. And everybody seems to think that Gettysburg was the bloodiest, and it wasn't. Antietam was. And you don't hear about it. You don't hear about it as much as you do Gettysburg.
Oh, shit. Why is that?
Because Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address at
Gettysburg. Oh, okay. That's why I heard of Gettysburg.
I mean, it's, and the thing about the Civil War, it did not start over slavery. Slavery was nothing in it.
I would disagree about that, but
It literally wasn't. It wasn't over slavery. The South wanted to be its own entity and govern itself, and the North says, okay, well, if you're going to do that, then we're going to tax you on your exports to us.
A lot of people are.
So, and a lot of people think that it was over slavery, and it wasn't. It was actually they wanted to be their own entity away from the North, and the North says, well, if that's be the case, then we're going to tax you on it, on your exports.
And what's your rebuttal on that, Mark?
So
a lot of revisionism. The people that the writings of some of the people. I'm not as knowledgeable about the Civil War, but it's obvious that the North. There were in the heart of any war. One of my favorite things to say is follow the money. There's always money involved in every war.
Yeah,
But
there is. There's always
an
money.
example
Even
of this
now.
is the Crusades. The Crusades were fought over Christianity, but it's of no coincidence that the Middle East is where the money was. It was the door to the Far East, right? And it's also no coincidence that the Crusades stopped eventually after they came up with long distance navigation. They were able to sail to the east, or eventually the New World. So there's always money involved, but the reality is that slavery was a huge factor. The reason why they wanted to separate is because they wanted more independence, and part of that is money. Part of that is also slavery. So it's a factor that you can't ignore.
And that's where I have to disagree, because the North had their slaves too.
There was slaves on
So
both
it wasn't.
sides back
It
then,
was
right?
slaves on both sides. So there was no slavery issue.
But we're talking about the institution of slavery.
When it came into play was when Lincoln did the Gettysburg Address in his second year.
Okay.
Not his second year, but his second term of office.
Doris wants to know how did slavery become a part of it, or
Lincoln
was
made
it
it.
even a part of it?
Lincoln made it a part of it. His second term, the second year, and that's when slavery became actually a part of the Civil War. That's when they
Okay.
actually made it about slavery.
You can
See,
look at it this way. Even at face value, even if, say, the war did start 100% over money, the reality is the end of the Civil War brought the Confederate States basically power. They had been militarily defeated. And
see,
they were in no position at the end of the war, after having surrendered, to they basically had to make conciliations. So one of those is they had to submit to the amendment that liberated, well, sort of liberated the slaves. And a lot of them went back to work at the same farms, but
Doris made a point too.
if
A lot of people are pro Lincoln, but there's people on the other side that say he wasn't a very good guy either. So
I try to
he
be as
had slaves
neutral.
also, right?
Lincoln
Yeah.
suspended habeas corpus. I'm not a fan of any president, but
No.
the reality that slavery was a huge factor in the Civil War is just unavoidable. Money was there as well, just as much as slavery, perhaps. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's definitely a factor.
Oh shit! Everybody, welcome, Derek.
Well,
Fashionably late.
Hey
Derek?
guys,
but
Derek,
here's
this is my
the
brother. This is Sheriff.
thing. Yes, slavery became a part of it, and yes, both sides had slaves. It's irrefutable. It's there. But here's one little simple fact.
Jeff Bezos and I both have money, but that doesn't mean I'm rich.
Right.
Right?
Here's one little factor that not a lot of people know about. That when Grant offered Lee to come and talk to him at Appomattox,
Yeah.
it wasn't going to be for Lee to surrender. It was for Grant to surrender.
Oh shit.
But being the gentleman, he let Lee speak first, since he was the opposing side, and air his grievances. And then Lee said, "We've had enough. We surrender."
Phil has a question for Mark. He wants to know how much do you know about the Underground Railway?
Well, my focus was more about the Canadian history.
Oh yeah, I'm kidding.
So I relate to Canadian history basically as it pertains to Canada, and unfortunately, Britain in some ways favored the Confederate States, probably because they were exporters.
Yes, they actually backed the Confederacy.
Oh, shit.
Unfortunately, but the Underground Railroad went up north, obviously, to Canada. And when I lived in a town called St. Catharines, I was one of the ends of the Underground.
No way.
So I think there's a monument, if I'm not mistaken, to Harriet Tubman in St. Catharines.
well,
And
in Windsor, we have a church with a tunnel that the slaves, when they would come across to Windsor here from the States, they would hide in that tunnel for a good week or so, because there were still bounty hunters crossing from the States to here in hopes to catch a slave.
Oh, that's really cool.
And that's a good question, Doris. Why was
Yeah, Doris.
killed?
Yeah, Doris. Does anybody want to touch on that? Because I have
Lincoln,
no idea.
Yes, it's a touchy situation, let me tell you.
Right?
But
Lincoln was killed because Sheriff, I'm afraid it's wrong, because he freed the slaves, but there's a story behind it. The Knights of the Golden Circle were behind Lincoln's assassination,
yes, they were.
and the Knights of the Golden Circle, what they were was they were a secret society that wanted to annex Mexico after the Confederacy won the Civil War.
Okay.
And that was their plan.
And they wanted to make Mexico a slave state, pretty much. Am I right, Sheriff?
Yeah.
And they're like Mark said, the Queen was behind the Confederacy all the way because she believed in slavery.
The Queen believed in slavery too.
Yeah. Am I right or am I wrong so far?
We're talking.
It would have been
Queen
Victoria, I believe,
right?
at this time, and she was.
I don't think Elizabeth is that old. She's
we could dedicate an entire episode to how awful a person Queen Victoria was. Just one story, and this is not Civil War related.
No,
okay?
go ahead. It's
at the time.
It's all history
of the Irish famine. Protocol, international royal protocol, said that you could not donate more money to any given thing than the Queen, right? So to spite the Irish people who were starving to death, she donated a paltry 200, I think it was 2,000 pounds. And there were people in the Ottoman Empire who wanted to donate tens of thousands, but they weren't able to donate this money because Queen Victoria had set it at such a low amount. So people literally starved to death because she wanted to spite the Irish.
Yeah.
Just
That's
not
horrible.
to mention all the things with in Canada with the residential schools and colonialism.
That's
India, like, just no, I'm 100% there. She was an awful person.
so that debate still goes on today.
John Wilkes Booth was not a patsy. No, by no means he was.
John Wilkes Booth. I was going to say Lee Harvey Oswald.
He was not a patsy.
He shot someone else, didn't he?
Oswald shot Kennedy.
Kennedy. Okay. See, I'm up here.
But John Wilkes Booth was not a patsy.
He was a willing participant. He was a
willing participant. He was the one going out. He was supposed to kill Lincoln.
Yeah.
He was supposed to.
Yeah.
And the rest of the Knights of the Golden Circle were to kill all of his cabinet, all on the same night.
So Lee Harvey Oswald, no, John Wilkes Booth. He was one of the Round Table guys, the Knights of the Golden Circle.
Yes.
And let us not forget that all the conspirators behind the Lincoln assassination were all were all executed, including the ones that supplied the guns for that night.
Oh shit!
So yes, I mean Wilkes Booth was supposed to be the one to do Lincoln in, and then the rest of the Knights of the Golden Circle were to do in the rest of the cabinet, all on the same night.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's also another myth behind the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle, that they were behind the missing gold from the Civil War.
I heard about that too. There's all kinds of gold on the southern side.
I know. Go ahead, you two. I know you guys want to chime in on that.
Well, no, it's a possibility that they had something to do with it. Then again, it's a possibility they didn't. It's proving it is where it's hard. The paper trail, the notes, the letters, and stuff like that were passed hand to hand. Where did they go?
I'm afraid this is an era of history. I am. All the guys in the reenacting group were always talking about Civil War history, and I'm like, I just couldn't do it.
Let's go there, Mark, because
it gets very heated.
I
don't know enough to really.
We have Battlefield Park here in Stony Creek, just around the corner from us, and that's where you did your reenacting. You did some in Warland and Niagara and that too,
Ontario.
right?
I never made it to the States, but I almost made it to Meg's once, but something popped up at the last minute. It's in Ohio.
What war is that you were reenacting, and how was that involved with Americans and Canadians?
The War of 1812. So
that's where us few redcoats kicked the crap out of a bunch of blue coats, right? Is that what it was? We beat the Americans?
It really depends on how you look at it. For the Americans, to be a devil's advocate here, it's really an extension, well, for both sides, for all sides. It's really an extension of the American Revolution.
Okay.
I've always boiled it down to immigration issue, because the impressment, the numbers I looked at were far lower than what some American historians suggest. The impressment, the impressment of American sailors into the British Navy, and also France did the same thing. The war could have easily been just as well against France as Britain, because France and Britain were fighting.
Sure.
It was Napoleon around, and they were fighting each other.
Napoleon.
Now with France,
French.
the U.S. settled with France, and then the Louisiana Purchase came kind of about of it. That was kind of like the I'm not sure I'm using the word, the denouement. I'm not sure what the anticlimax. But with Britain, the issue of impressing sailors and the international rights. Basically, if you enlist in the British Navy or you're a British citizen, you swear an oath to the Queen, right, at that time, right? And then you leave and join the American Navy, right? That's, from Britain's perspective, you could look at that as desertion, right? If you're a member of Britain that was called to be working in the Navy or in the military, and then you join this foreign military, it's really an immigration. Could British citizens leave and become Americans and join their but a lot of them were impressed. They were Americans who they just kind of took to work on the Navy because nobody wanted to work on those ships. They were awful.
Phil's got a question. He said,
but for
didn't
us,
the Canadians burn down the White House?
British soldiers, after Napoleon had been defeated, British soldiers sailing directly from Britain sailed to DC, and they burned down the White House. So there were no Canadians present, but
okay,
it was on our behalf. So
it was on our behalf.
No, it was kind of in retaliation for the sacking of our capital, which at that time was York, where Toronto is, but also for the burning of Dover Mills in Western Ontario, where Port Dover is.
Okay.
Before then, there were instances of civilian casualties. Like there's always casualties in war.
There's always casualties in war.
Washington and his father, the name for U.S. president in Mohawk still means town burner because of what he did to the native villages in New York. But to this day, that's what it means. Is town burner is the Mohawk word for president. But
Phil's one of our UK friends. He says the British burnt the White House.
Yeah. But near the end of the War of 1812, the Americans and later the British burnt basically everything they could find in southwestern Ontario, so that the British couldn't use it, couldn't eat it, couldn't. And it was in retaliation of that. And then we burnt, I think, Buffalo, and before that they burnt Niagara on the Lake. So there was a lot of devastation near the end of the war.
So. Well, let's touch on that. The Yankee says, Sheriff, the fighting was close quarters and the guns were slow loading. Yeah, that's the muskets, right?
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
How fast can you get a shot off in a musket?
You can literally.
We're talking a marksman back in the day.
They could get off 3 shots in 60 seconds.
In 60 seconds. Holy shit.
And it slows down the more you fire because the fouling inside.
Yeah.
But there were rifles at that time.
They had rifling back then.
Yeah, they did have rifling, some of them.
Okay.
But they were accurate, fairly accurate. I know people who hunted with their reproductions. But after you fire them once or twice, it takes like a minute to load.
Yeah,
the loading is much slower.
It gets difficult to ram the wadding in the ball in.
And at this point, are they doing the whole lineup thing, where they're just kind of like a firing squad lining up?
And they're not hundreds of yards away from each other.
No,
You're looking probably
50 feet.
50, maybe. 50 yards.
Essentially, it was a massacre because
you literally could see each other's whites of your eyes.
And even at that close range, they weren't very accurate. Some of the muskets.
Oh yeah, they were
was
dead on.
That's
Oh,
why
they
they
were.
stood in the line. Because the idea was, if you packed, like, I'll give you an example to use the actual terms. My musket is a 72 or 75 caliber barrel, and they fired a 68 caliber
Shit.
ball at most,
Shit.
and basically would rattle down the barrel, and then you wouldn't be able to hit anything. So if you stood enough people in a line, this wall would come of lead, and eventually.
So fire as much lead as you can downrange, and you'll hit something eventually.
Very, very
Kind of
few
deal.
people actually were killed based on muskets in the war. It was mostly disease and
Wow.
things like starvation, cholera, that kind of stuff, and artillery fire.
Yeah, in the Civil War, they were using, the South was using brown vests,
Okay.
which is what came from England.
What is a brown? Is that a form of a musket?
Yeah,
Brown
it's
vest is
a
mine, but
Yeah.
a lot of them, I don't know if I would say a lot of them, but at least some of them had been converted to percussion cap at that time, I believe.
Yeah,
Oh shit.
Mine's not percussion cap; it's loose
here's
powder.
flintlock.
Were you saying something, Derek?
don't forget about tuberculosis too back then.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, disease and I heard that like even like the smallest wound could kill you. Like even if it wasn't, the wound wasn't life threatening. It was what came after the wound that,
Yeah,
they often amputated something because you got shot, and like nowadays you could just, fix it up, but you couldn't back then because you get bacteria and stuff like that.
and also like he was talking about artillery fire. You had different sorts of ammo for the cannons.
Oh, really? I thought it was a standard ball. Well, I know there's different sizes, right?
You had the literal solid shot, which is a solid cannonball, doesn't explode or anything like that, but it'll bounce and whatever it hits is taken out.
Shit. I wouldn't want to be in front of one of the cannons, that's for sure.
Then you have an exploding ball, which does explode when it hits. It's got a fuse on it. They set the fuse for so long and so many yards, and then when it gets it explodes.
They had like grenade.
Then they have
cannonballs kind of thing.
Then they have what they call a canister shot, which is a canister. It's about this long and probably about this big around.
Oh shit!
And it's got steel balls in it, that big.
No.
Yeah. And they shot that above you.
So that was like incendiary.
So when it exploded, it took out whole lines and shit.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot that went into it. And like I said, these guys were firing at basically point blank range. They could see the whites of each other's eyes.
Wow.
If you ever get a chance to see a Civil War reenactment, it'll blow your mind.
I've been to a few.
I've never seen a Civil War reenactment, but I have I have stories. A guy I was in the reenacting unit I was with, and in Canada, reenacting is much more tame than in the United States, is my understanding. Here, one of the guys in one of my first groups got in trouble because his death scream was too realistic, and there were children present. They're family shows, and they don't want, blood or guts. And but in the South, an older guy I worked with it was one of his first reenactments, I think, for the Civil War. And he's walking along, and they're going through across the battle, and he sees this guy, the artillery fire go off across the field, and this guy's arm fly, and there's
he had like a prosthetic
blood, and he's
arm?
like, "What the heck?" And then he reaches out of the bottom of his coat, and you see under the bottom of his coat, he goes, like he had a fake device on his arm with a little explode that popped it off.
Wow.
Timed it so Just
That's
ludicrous.
commitment.
And then,
That's
of course, there's
dedication.
another story. I think it might have been the same battle. He was killed in a creek, and he's laying there, and it's hot. So he's feeling the cool water, and he's like, "Oh, this is nice." And then and they had horses in Canada. They don't use horses on the battle, but they had horses, I guess, at the event. And he looks at him, corner of his eye, he sees this brown thing floating down the stream towards him. So he's able to grab his bayonet and kind of steer this floating horse.
Oh,
And
the
the horse
horse
dropping
there.
away so it doesn't come and hit him in the head.
Shit. Floating. Yeah, I wouldn't want to get.
The funny thing is where did the Civil War start? There's you.
I haven't a clue.
Right. Sling blade. Do you know where it started? And don't you Google it.
Don't you Google it?
The North?
Nope.
The South started the Civil War?
It started in the South.
Oh, shit. Damn.
It started at Fort Sumter, South Carolina.
Wow.
The
Fort
Union
Sumter.
the Union had control of the fort, and the South wanted it.
Coconut or corn pop got that one.
Yep,
Shit.
that's where it started. And let's see.
Oh, Maja?
It started on April 12th, 1861.
Oh, shit. 1861.
The Civil War ended in April 9th of 1865.
Yeah.
So
Damn.
just a few days shy of 4 years that the battle went on.
And bloody battles in the Civil
Yeah.
War. It's just so
So-
close knit, right? The states are
Well, you
like,
got
close together.
there's one that and I've got a video on it on my channel. It's in Antietam, and it's Sunken Road, or AKA Bloody Lane, because they fought all day and all evening for that road, and nobody took the ground.
That's a good question there. How many people died in the Civil War? Doris wants to know. Is there a stat on that, or?
Yeah, I can get it. Give me just a second.
I don't know.
A lot.
A lot of people died.
I have no idea. It's not my.
That's what I was going to say. A lot.
We're specialized, right? Everyone has their
This comes
about Russian history, and I'm like,
This comes from American, where I get my information. This comes from American Battlefield Trust.
Okay.
There was total for both sides. It was 620,000 men died. That was
And
died, missing.
that's huge for 150 years ago. That's
And it's still classified as one of America's bloodiest wars.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty bad.
I mean, there's certain battlefields, and Sheriff will verify this. If you two have there's certain battlefields in the South where the Civil War was fought, where some of those
Since all casualties were American, that's a good point.
Were the bloodiest battlefields in the history of the Civil War.
That's a good. Well, that's going to the Titanic, but this is a little. Nah, he's doing on his. Oh boy, 50% survival rate on the Titanic, which is good. There was 40 Canadians on board and 20 lived. I don't know what stat. That's pretty cool though. I mean, of the 40 Canadians on the Titanic, 20 of them lived. That's pretty crazy. Boys and men. Yeah, because they were young, right? They weren't all 21. Like we're 19 to go to war nowadays. Some of them were young, 13, 14, 15, something like that. I don't know.
Your deadliest battles in the Civil War was
the Civil War,
Gettysburg, Spotsylvania, Chickamauga, the Wilderness Campaign, Antietam, Shiloh, Chancellorsville, and Bull Run, Stones River, and Fredericksburg. Now that's Gettysburg was June 3rd to July the 24th of 1863.
Wow.
7,863 in that battle.
And General John B. Hood led the charge into Gettysburg.
And it just increases from there on out. So it gets crazy. I mean, it decreases from that, but the number 3 battle in that is the Battle of Chickamauga.
Oh shit!
There was 4,192 in that battle that perished, wounded, or what have you. And it was,
shit.
Here's the kicker though. It's 2,725 Union casualties to 1,467 Confederate casualties. Chickamauga was a Confederate victory.
Oh wow! They did have some victories in the Civil War, though. The Confederates.
Lee was whipping Grant's butt with less men and doing a hell of a job at it.
Oh shit!
When it got closer toward the end of the war, the tables turned.
Was that because of war, tactics, or they had better weapons, or
no, wasn't no better weapons or anything like that. It was just outmaneuvering them, just better tactics.
There's a good question.
One of the things that Lee did was he studied the old war maps of 1812, of Napoleon, and that's how he got some of his battle tactics, was looking at these old maps and stuff.
So what ended the Civil War?
Lee surrendered.
Doris wants to know. Lee surrendered. Okay. He was just getting pinned down, or?
No, he got to the point that it was time to end it. The men couldn't go no further. Either side couldn't go any further. So Lee ended it and did it honorably.
Oh, that's good.
He actually went to Grant, and him and Grant signed all the paperwork, and Lee handed him his sword.
Oh wow, okay.
But Lee left the Appomattox courthouse with his sword.
He left with Grant's sword.
No, he left with his own sword.
He left with his own sword.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Few out of 100 men lived to be 60 years old. Damn.
Also, you had to take into account too that the kids lied about their age.
Yeah.
You had 14, 15-year-olds that was out there fighting the battle.
Because they wanted to go to war with their dad or whatever.
It's because their principles. Their principles dictated that.
And Sheriff, I don't know if you heard about this, but don't forget about Lee's lost orders.
Everybody's heard that.
I don't know what that's all about.
Well.
Lee's orders got lost. They didn't get lost. They got captured.
En route or something.
By a Union soldier.
Oh shit! So they knew what they were going to do.
Yeah.
On
a particular day.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's another thing too. You had to figure this. You've got all these generals scattered out across this big field or woods or whatever. Well, you're having to have runners take orders to them to tell them what to do. You know.
Okay.
So if you don't have if that order doesn't get sent to that person, they're going to stand there with their finger in their ear, going, "Okay, what do I do now?"
Right? Because you don't know what the next move is.
Right.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Whereas
And-
British generals were just upper class twits, so nobody expected them to do anything.
Sure.
But
Well,
you know,
sorry to shift aside here, but the Battle of New Orleans that happened after the War of 1812 ended.
1814.
I think they killed 3 British officers, like higher senior officers or something like that during that battle. And as lower ranks, we're just like, big deal. They were so like catastrophic, but the fine British officership was just so dumb. So when you're talking about I'm not as knowledgeable in the Civil War, but you're talking about Civil War leaders with their tactics and strategy and outmaneuvering each other, and I'm just like, wow, that's great. The British method. I was going to say why the North won, and I'm like, they took the British method. They just fired young people at them until their guns jammed.
Oh wow!
And Doris, yes, it was brother against brother, father against son.
Really?
Uncles against nephews, and cousins against cousins. Yeah, it was how their viewpoint was.
Wow. That's pretty deep.
Yeah, I mean, you have to also look at some of these generals that Lee and Grant had under them. They were some that younger than 30.
Mm-hmm.
What was Canada doing?
They were a general, brigadier general, lieutenant general. I mean, they were stuff like that.
Yeah. What was Canada doing when all this happened? Just being
scared. And eventually, it was after the Civil War. They were worried that eventually, once the Civil War ended, that they were going to turn north, right? So that's one of the reasons why Confederation happened. We're like, well, we better protect ourselves and build a railroad.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Derek, do you have
after the Civil War, there was the Fenian raids, though. That happened.
What is that? What is that about?
Irish independence sympathizers living in the United States. So basically, they were pro-Irish militant soldiers who tried to invade Canada in 1866.
Okay.
That was it didn't last very long. They kind of put it down, but I think it ended at Ridgeway, which is in Niagara. But that happened shortly after the Civil War.
Oh, nice. Well, it's not nice, but...
No, our ancestors served in that one. By then, they had stopped ox thievery, I guess. Started honest work.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when I do my videos on my channel. I'm neutral. I tell both sides. I tell the South, I tell the North, and it's no one-sided. Even though I'm from the South, I'm from Georgia, but it's all history. I stood on the spot where Lincoln gave Gettysburg Address, and my buddies saw the pictures and said, "Why?" I'm like, "Because it's history. It ain't got nothing to do with one side or the other. It's history."
Oh yeah.
Doris, are you talking about the Civil War, or both World Wars, or Vietnam? Because the only war that I know that Americans came over here was Vietnam.
Yeah.
So we allowed them to come over here because in Vietnam we were unofficially involved in that war. Unofficially.
That was recent though, because I remember.
But we had guys,
60?
we had guys from here enlisting in the military over in the States to go fight over in Vietnam.
What?
As they were coming over here to get away, we were going over there to fight.
So they would, instead of being, they didn't want to be drafted, so they would come to Canada.
Yeah, they were considered draft dodgers.
My dad fought with the 101st Airborne in Vietnam.
It don't work that way no more.
No.
It was a safe third country agreement.
But Vietnam, that's a whole other. You'll get
whole nother
get
ball of wax.
You'll get arguments
Yeah.
over that work till the cows come home.
Yep, I don't even study it.
I stopped talking to my dad about Vietnam, because I mean he just.
I can actually say that one of the things that I'm proud of my father, he was in World War II and Korea.
My grandfather.
Nice.
My grandfather was in World War II.
Nice.
We had a great grandfather that was in the First World War.
Nice.
But that was actually kind of a cool story. It ended sad. He survived one of the cases where he survived the war, but
Well, what happened? What's the story?
he was in the Pioneer Regiment in the First World War, and pioneers were different than laborers or engineers in that they were fully armed battle unit. So they would march into battle, and you had to quickly prepare for a counterattack. So you would march into battle with the regular troops, and then you'd also had shovels and hammers and stuff, and you'd begin immediately to. But then later in the war, in preparation for Vimy Ridge, they started training then, but it was more the last 100 days, Canal du Nord and that kind of stuff. They trained what they called bridge and pontoon units. So at Canal du Nord, the Germans basically had been blowing up in full retreat, blowing up every bridge they could find to retreat to the Hindenburg line.
Oh, nice.
And which is a heavily fortified line. But they'd blown up every bridge on the way. So they, at the end of the war, they had to fight all these battles across rivers and canals, and that's when everyone else is marching into battle with guns, and our great grandfathers coming into battle carrying a bridge behind them. So it was a transport unit, right? They're like pontoon shorts, right?
See, that's where we first see Mark, if I may call you Mark, because I'm guessing you're related to my good buddy Chris over here.
That's my baby brother, Derek.
Nice to meet you.
He's the most intelligent of the boys.
If Chris
know nothing about the Civil War though.
If Chris told you anything about me, I hope it's good shit, good stuff. Anyways, did you? Speaking of World War I, did you know that we never gave up an inch of ground?
We never gave what?
Who never gave up ground?
We did. Us Canadians, we never gave up an inch of ground in World War
I didn't know that.
I
thought we were just like a ally in the world.
We nearly lost Ypres, but that's during the Second Battle of Ypres. We nearly tanked the entire line. But that was there were also French Algerians there. There were also other units there, and that was the first use of gas.
The Germans were afraid of us, though. They called us stormtroopers.
Yeah, later in the war, the British kind of figured that Canadians were better off as shock troops. So, because of the way our system was ranked, and Britain had a lot of places so they needed to use the Anzacs and the Canadians in these sort of roles. My cat's meowing at me.
I got sirens outside. You want to trade?
Sirens outside.
I got sirens outside. You want to trade?
No, we get.
Yeah, I try not to take too much of a, there's that feeling of my team won kind of in history, right? I found that a lot with studying World War I. There's like
Did anybody really
patriotism or
win in any war?
nationalism. And I'm like, this is a war that didn't need to happen.
No,
I don't think you should take that kind of like big joy. But yeah, Canadians were particularly affected in World War One
well, I
for a
don't
lot
think.
of reasons.
Well,
Not the least of which. Sorry, go ahead.
we had some good victories in World War One. Passchendaele, Vimy, Ypres.
Yeah.
We had those victories in World War One.
Yeah,
No.
I try to be neutral, just like our friend Sheriff said. I try to be neutral, so I'm obliged to say that while Canadians did take Vimy Ridge, it was part of a larger Ross offensive, which didn't go so well, and it was British artillery that pounded the Germans into basically submission, except for I don't know, remember the actual name, but they called it the Pimple, which is a high point in Vimy Ridge that didn't. It took a while to take, but
Right.
and then later they just kind of like lost it later in the war.
Yeah.
Do you have let me shift here for a sec, but do you guys have a favorite moment in history, whether it be war or whatever, Canadian history? Like, let's try Derek. Do you have a favorite event in history that Canadian history or wherever that doesn't have to be about war? It could be about whatever. It could be about war.
Favorite history would have to be the War of 1812 because it was fought here in Windsor and all over Ontario, and I have all kinds of favorite history things. Right now the War of 1812 is what pops in my head because it's my local history,
Ray Liotta.
It's hard for me to pick a favorite moment. It depends on what you mean by favorite.
That's what I mean. It's hard. I mean,
my favorite historical experience with regards to history, just personally, was blending off from what he'd said at the end of the War of 1812. There was a battle called Lundy's Lane, and it was the deadliest battle in Canadian history. And
is that the same Lundy's Lane in the Falls, or is that something different?
The same Lundy's Lane. It's now, there is a battlefield cemetery with graves from the battle, a convenience store with overpriced candy, and a strip club. And the bus stop that I used to take the bus to school. There's a museum now. I went to it when it was under construction, but I didn't go after it was built. I'm sure it's lovely. But the same Lundy's Lane, and we could spend an entire episode on that battle. Yeah, the British lost multiple casualties, failed after counterattack, lost the high ground to the Americans early in the battle, and yet somehow we won because the Americans retreated at the end, sort of. But figure
that shit out. Somehow we won, man.
But this is my favorite experience, right? They're like, okay, well, near the end of the battle, the American general or officer, I can't remember his exact rank, I apologize, was wounded and retreated. And there's this feeling of, oh, he retreated. He's a coward and he was afraid. And then I was at the 200th anniversary of Battle of Fort Erie, and it was a heat wave. And I know that the summer of at the time of the Battle of Lundy's Lane was very hot. And the thing about black powder is it's made with charcoal, sulfur, and a substance called saltpeter. And it is a natural absorbent. And you have to bite the top of the cartridge off. Pour a little bit in the pan and then fill the end of the barrel. Then when you do that, every time you're biting the end of the cartridge, you get a little bit of this black powder in your mouth, and your mouth starts to dry and dry and dry. Now, for us, there's a water fountain over there, right? At Battle of Queenston Heights, we were parked upon a tennis court waiting to go into battle. waiting our turn to jump in, right, to this pretend sort of battle. So we have water, but at the end of the Battle of Lundy's Lane, they had exhausted their water rations and their field rations, and were in no position to keep the ground. So that's why they retreated. But it was being in that heat wave and seeing members of my unit actually succumb to heat exhaustion in this 37-degree weather, wearing the red wool, and we're just dead tired from the heat. And it was that personal connection to history, thinking it's no wonder that the people were passing out at the battle. The people who died in that battle just of heat exhaustion.
Oh yeah.
So it's no wonder that they retreated, and you can kind of understand. Better, history if you add that human element that these soldiers that fought in the War of 1812 and the Civil War had annoying neighbors and lost card games and got hangnails and they were actual human beings that lived and breathed and had foods and people that irritated them, and I just love that part of history.
Building's grandfather served in the Navy during World War II. He was on a minesweeper.
My dad was in the Navy also.
Awesome.
My granddad was he was in War II. He was infantry, but he served time over in Germany doing that fighting. And as soon as that ended, they were on the boat headed back to the States, and they said, "Nope, you're not going home yet." So then they had to turn the boat and go to Japan. So he went to Japan to occupy it.
Officer in the Navy, that's cool.
So he got to serve in both. He got to be in both theaters.
That's Corn Pop's favorite moment in history is the signing of the Declaration of Independence. How was that brought about?
There's Americans president. Don't get me started on the Revolutionary War. Chris, to put in perspective, our ancestor was in the Butler's Rangers, which was like a guerrilla unit, and he was at the battle in the American Revolution called the Battle of Wyoming, which has among the highest by percentage casualty rates for American units in combat.
Oh wow!
Well over 90% casualties, just a complete massacre, and it's terrible. So it's for our family in that war and then the family was later kicked out of the United States.
Oh, nice.
Because I guess, and sort of, they were exiled.
Exiled. Well,
kind of, because they were our ancestors was captured at the end of the American Revolution, and then the family left because how could you stay? Your neighbors know that you sided with Britain, right? So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go, Chris. I'll show you a few things.
What's up, buddy? Sure. We got some visuals, right on.
Yep.
But no.
I like visuals. There we go. What you got there?
This is actually my ancestor that fought in the Civil War.
Oh, that's cool.
His grave is in Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond, Virginia.
I'm sure what branch my dad was a SEAL in Vietnam through Navy. Nice.
And here is some of the people that he is actually buried amongst. General George Pickett.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
General Jeb Stuart.
General. Ooh.
And there's, you can see it a little more. It's him and his wife.
Wow. I shout out to all the people who have served and family members who have served in any form of military around the world. Much love, guys. Thank you for your service.
This is Jeb Stuart's monument on Monument Road.
Oh, nice. Wow, that's a nice monument. The horse.
This monument right here no longer exists.
Oh, would they take it down?
This is the one that they took down, and they found the time capsule in.
There was a bunch in Ontario and Canada they tore down.
A bunch of
Civil War.
A bunch of Lee's time capsule stuff was in this.
Oh, that's cool.
Many more pending.
Then
many more pending, right, Mark?
This is Jefferson
I'm
Davis
still
is
tearing down, so we won't talk about that.
this is Jefferson Davis's monument on Monument Row.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Jefferson Davidson.
Jefferson Davis. He was the
Davis.
president of the Confederacy.
Oh, okay.
And then that's a little bit closer up right there.
Oh,
And that'd be it.
nice. That's really cool.
Just a few things.
That is really, really cool. Yeah. History's awesome. I don't know
I've
a
been
whole
to
lot, but
I've been to Gettysburg. I've been to Appomattox courthouse where Lee and Grant signed the treaty, the surrender treaty.
I haven't been to Gettysburg yet. I've been to a couple of fields. I've been to, of course, I've been to Chickamauga. I've been to Little Rivers Bridge, and actually, Little Rivers Bridge is the one that I fought. I reenacted on, where my I had an uncle that was in that. I was in the Second Georgia group, and one of my great uncles, great, how many greats they are, but uncles was in the Second Georgia. So I was one of the very, very few that actually had a relative that served
oh
in that
shit.
group. And but yeah, it is definitely you're out there, those wool suits get hot pretty quick. Even in the winter. Here's the thing though, even when it's cool outside, it was cold at night but man, that next day it was hot, especially in that wool suit. And you're sitting there in that sun's baking in that wool suit. It's hot.
Well,
Titanic.
building with the boys, if the Titanic is your favorite, did you know that there's a cemetery in Halifax, Nova Scotia?
Where the body's washed up, right?
It's very sad.
With the dead that are buried
It's a tragic event.
They all washed
So
up
like
on
the
our
cemetery, you can feel it.
Really? Feel the vibe?
It's a feeling I've only felt a couple times at historical sites.
Have you been to
And-
that site?
And-
You been to that site in Halifax?
I've been to the Halifax cemetery for the Titanic.
Oh,
Yeah, the child
shit.
then was unidentified, but they have identified the child. But it was just, this is one of many children.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
That is a very good point. Very early example of corporate greed.
Well,
Yeah.
greed's the worst thing, and when it comes to things, it gets you into a lot of trouble. Even the war, even during the wars, greed played a huge effect in it. And actually, Derek, even anybody and everybody during all the wars, they lost and gained. They swapped back and forth multiple times.
So I have to agree with you. In wars, people lose and people gain. It's a vicious circle that should not happen. But
Right.
I mean, there's no but, because everything after but is bullshit. I've been told.
Well, no, I'm saying, but now here's the thing though. Yes, and you're right. It agreed is, but we would sit there, and I'm not just talking about us. I'm talking about allies. Allies now. I'm not just saying U.S. allies. Y'all were part of the Allied program. You were allies. Okay. Now, yes, we would gain land, and we'd sit there and turn around and come back. And what would happen? They would take it back over. So then we had to go back and recapture it again. We could actually have taken the land 3 times.
Right.
3 times.
And that
happened.
That happened. And that should happen from all the way from, I'm guessing, the Civil War, taking land and giving it back, taking land, giving it back, all the way to Vietnam.
Well, now here's the thing though. Now, so, change. Yes, land did change hands, all like that. But also, it depends on how it's changed hands. Now, when you sit there and say, "Hey, they're not going to do anything with it. They're not going to come back. We're done. So we'll back off of this land." That's when they took it. There's a difference. But now, if we're sitting there and we occupying it, and they come in and they take it back over to where where we retreat back and they take it over, that's a little bit of difference. But that happened a lot as well on any battle, any war. It happens. So, but yeah.
Well, that's the one
All
thing
right.
about the Civil War. They didn't turn tail after they captured the ground. They kept the ground. They
Yeah.
literally had to fight them and take it back. I mean, it was just that way. And
It's back and forth.
a good example of that is Sunken Road. It's a road and a fence on either side of this road.
Mm-hmm.
And they're back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Men are trying to come over the fence, they're getting shot, and they're falling dead into the road.
They literally filled that road up with bodies, actually.
Yeah, it had bunches.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yo, who said his favorite part of history was the the
Titanic?
signing of the Declaration of Independence?
I was Corn Pop.
Corn Pop.
Did you know that Ben Franklin was classified as a traitor, and now he's a hero? But don't get me started on the presidents.
Oh, you don't like the
everyone
presidents
signed the
either.
document was a traitor.
But Benjamin Franklin was called a traitor, and now he's a hero.
Well, now, wait a minute.
Figure that shit out.
Are you talking about Benedict Arnold?
Yeah, Benedict Arnold. Sorry, Benedict
I
Arnold.
was gonna say Benjamin Franklin was like an inventor, wasn't he?
Well, he was, but also here's the thing,
There's a
though.
lot of things, yeah.
Well, Ben Franklin wasn't. He was wanting to try to peacefully. He was going back and forth peacefully, trying for us not to go into war, because he knew it was going to be a huge bloody battle, and he didn't want that. So he, of course, yes, he was going back and forth with England and U.S. because he had contacts in both England and France and everywhere else. He had contacts, so he was using his high contacts to try to stop this. Now, Benedict Arnold, yes, that's why they called him Turncoat. His nickname was Turncoat.
He was turncoat because of that.
Because he was playing both sides. He was playing both sides to the middle.
Right.
Okay.
He would turn his coat red, go over to the British, yada yada yada. They sell information. All he was in for, it was the money, and then he'd come back over to the colonist side, and then sit there and go back to blue, and he would set back and forth, selling information back and forth because he was just for the money. He didn't care about anything. But yeah,
I hate to tell. I hate to mansplain to Americans, but that entire war was fought over money.
Yeah, a lot of wars are fought over
a lot
money,
of taxation without representation. That's all nonsense.
Yeah.
You know why they dumped that tea in that river, Boston tea? Is because the East India Company was going bankrupt, and it was among the first ever, at least to my knowledge, corporate bailouts. So what they did was they granted tax-exempt status to the East India Company to effectively bail them out from bankruptcy. Too big to fail, as the saying goes. So, so basically, they threw the cheaper tea in the river so that they can sell their more expensive stuff.
The Boston Tea Party.
To pad their own profit margins. And then the British went and said, you can't settle any new land that belongs to First Nations. It has to be treated first. They did this in response to Pontiac's rebellion. That cut into their profit margins. And then there was the threat of abolitionism, which wasn't really factored in the American Revolution, but the thought was there. There was a lot of things, and a lot of these things coincide with making it more difficult for these business class colonists to make their money. So anyway, that's
no child was heartbreaking.
I'm gonna we're talking about how war makes money, and sure, and it does. War makes money. As sad as that sounds, it does. When you look at after World War I, Germany's economy was down.
Yeah.
But when World War II, but Hitler, and when World War II popped up, Germany's economy was up.
Yeah. Yeah. Building lesser known interesting history. It's important to learn and pass it on what we learn from it and never forget it. He's obsessed with the story of the Radium Girls. I've never heard that story. Does anybody know what that is? The Radium Girls?
Never heard of them.
The
I've
Radium
never
Girl.
seen the show, but I think what it's referring to is using radium to paint glow in the dark.
Yeah, yes, it was
Or-
alarm. It was actually alarm clock. So radium, radium was actually used to on the hands of the clock to glow at night, glow in the dark. Now, what the girls would do was they would sit there and lick the brush to make it real fine point because they needed that fine point to get on those hands. So what happened was over time they're sitting there absorbing that radium in their mouth by licking their paintbrushes, and a lot of them died.
Shit.
Actually died from
Because of it.
radiation poisoning.
And that's going back to the unknown child there. The fishermen that pulled him from the water did right by him. They paid for his burial wear and coffin, which is solid. That's top notch of them for doing that.
The other time that I felt that sort of solemn, the thickness in the air, almost paranormal, was at the Halifax Cemetery with the unknown child's grave. The other time was at the Battle of was at Fort Erie during the 200th anniversary, and there's a part
we went to
where you
that.
go. I don't know if you guys know about this, but during the Battle of Fort Erie, the British got into the fort and they turned two cannons on each other, and were firing so the hot shot hit the bastion and blew up the gunpowder magazine.
Shit.
And just devastating. But as you're going through into where the magazine would have been to reach the battlements for the first one, it's the original portraying the British surrender of the fort. When the fort was rebuilt during the Depression, I believe, it was done as a make-work project. People were paid piecework, like work for the day. They weren't paid extra. But as the story goes, they were required to dig in a certain radius whenever they found a body, which was often, and they weren't paid extra for it. So the story goes that they would grind the bones up and put them in the mortar. And the area that they found the most bones was near that magazine. So you can walk through there, and I'm dressed as a redcoat, of course, walking through the tunnel to the magazine where the parapets are, and you can just feel it in the air. You can smell it. You can smell like the flesh on that. And it's just supernatural.
Hey Terry, don't take me. Thank this panel up here.
If you want,
the guys.
I'll share some more photos, but before you share it, hold on. If anybody's squeamish, don't watch.
Everybody's squeamish, look away.
This is sunken road. It's a sunken road after the battle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, bye.
Yeah, you can see them.
Yeah, that's trench warfare, right?
No, that's just right across it.
They were right here on this side, and there's a fence over here on this other side, and they were trying to get from one side to the other.
Okay.
To try to capture the ground. There was a fence road on both sides that prevented it. All right, here's another one. Same place.
Oh, that's one of the 3D ones. Cool.
Oh, look at that. That's
and now,
right?
I'll show you sunken road. Okay, this is what it looks like today.
Oh wow, it's all grown over.
Today than it was back.
But you can see this whole roadway, all the way up and all the way down, was full of bodies.
Mm-hmm.
It's built on top of people.
That shit was close quarters.
No, it's not It's not built on top of people. This is the actual roadway.
Yeah.
This is the actual pathway that the townspeople used to get from one place to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And this is at Antietam. And this is literally how close it is.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So you see there's men standing on each side of this fence. Confederate on one side, Union on the other.
That is something else.
And I'm
Oh,
sure
yeah.
there's still bodies under there.
No,
No,
they picked them
they,
all up.
they were removed.
Yeah, they were removed.
I'm sure some of them
No, but
stayed there though.
there's strong energy there though.
Well, I can
Well,
guarantee you
we-
that.
Yes, because of tragic stuff happened there. Yes, of course.
Right?
Now, even when I was reading that at Little Ridge Bridge, I could hear yelling at night.
I'll tell you what, I did a video on Sunken Road, and you can literally, I'm happy-go-lucky doing the video and everything, and you can see my demeanor change
Oh,
while
wow.
I'm trying to do this video. I literally had to sit down, and it was like 1,000 people rushed me at one time, all wanting to talk at the same time.
Mm-hmm. That's
I,
like that's like go to I tell you, you want to go someplace that's really sad and really heavy, just like that. I mean, really bad. Go to Andersonville Prison.
Yeah.
They would have thousands die a day, just about. The original prison was only supposed to hold 1,000 people. They expanded it 3 times.
And it still didn't have enough room.
And it still didn't have enough.
room.
Yep.
Shit.
Because, what got them mostly was the water.
The other thing, I would love that, dude.
The drinking water was actually right below where the outhouses were. And then also it was right below a farm where cows would go bathing in it. And also the soldiers on the outside, the Union soldiers, not Union soldiers, but the Confederate soldiers would be on the outside, and they would pee into the creek as well. So those guys were, and then on top of that, the guys would actually bathe in their drinking water. So yeah, they had a lot of stuff. And then of course, so, they killed each other. These were all Union soldiers in there. They killed each other. They stole from each other, trying to survive. The worst of the group was the worst group of that was the Raiders. It was a small group of Union soldiers. Actually, I think they were sailors, actually, but they called themselves the Raiders, and they would actually literally when new soldiers would come in, new Confederates would come in, one of their guys would go over, and they would say, before they would say, he was saying fresh fish the whole way, because they called them fresh fish. They were catching them. So what they did was he made friends with them and got the group, and they said, "Hey, come on over here. This is where we are. You'll be safe over here." Da da da. They get over. As soon as they get over their coast, they were surrounded, and every one of the guys would have a club, and they would beat them, and they'd take their knapsacks, they'll take their blankets, their shoes, their food. If they had food, they took it. They took everything from them, and then stripped them and just sent them back out to the rest of the population. But now, eventually, though, the Raiders did get where they got fed up, and they attacked the Raiders, and they got all their stuff back.
Boy. You can only take so much, right?
Right, but now here's the thing, though. This is the first time. That was the first time that an actual trial, a war crime trial, was held in a prison.
It wasn't held in the prison.
The Union soldiers held a court martial for the Raiders, and they lost, and they hung them. They built the gallows right there inside the prison and hung them. And then right there, they were buried, not with the ring. They're buried on a small little area, fenced off all by themselves, because they were to be separated from anybody else. Because of what they did. But yeah, I mean, if you ever get a chance, go there.
Check it out.
It's sad. They do have portions of the wall to mock exactly to scale what it was like, how tall the walls were, the dead zone was. They have that all there. They still have the monument there in the center from the they call it the lightning well.
Yeah.
Because what happened was a lightning bolt struck the center of the field, and when it did, it cracked open a spring that kept running and running and running.
Okay.
But yeah, it's really neat. I'll definitely get a chance. Actually, if you go there, go to Chickamauga, go anywhere really. The history,
Yeah,
you will not be disappointed in any
I'm
way.
Oh, I
I
love
would
it.
love
fascinated
to go.
by it.
I love history. I got 250 to 300 books here, all of history.
Building, I would
Hmm.
love to arrange that, by the way, if you want to do a whole like panel on Titanic and the unknown child, and we could totally set that up
I'm
if
hoping
you're
to
Oh,
go to
interested.
Halifax.
I
I'm
love to go
hoping
to
to go
Titanic.
to. I'm hoping to go to Halifax this summer to do a video on the cemetery, Mark, of where the
Nice.
Titanic, where the Titanic
Oh, there you
deceased,
go.
and do a video on Halifax Harbor that blew up in the 1900s.
Yeah. Mark, is there
Well,
any
you guys want to talk? You guys want to talk a sad part of history? Check out how do a research Halifax Harbor. There was a ship that blew up there carrying munitions, killing everybody on the harbor.
yeah.
Mont Blanc.
Hmm.
Is there any site in history that
Remember-
you would want to visit,
Me?
I
Mr.
want to
Mark?
visit every site.
Every site.
There's one site that I would like to visit. Well, so I want to leap off the Titanic thing for just a second, and it
Yeah, no
segues
worries.
naturally into your question. Our ancestor sailed back home from the First World War on the Olympic, which
Okay.
is the Titanic sister ship, which is kind of interesting. But
That is
uh,
interesting.
Lauren's great grandfather, Lauren is my wife. Sorry, she her ancestor died, was killed in the First World War. So we
Oh,
want to go
shit.
over and see his grave. But there's a cemetery over there I want to see, and it's actually a German cemetery. The beginning of the First World War, the German army sent legions of thousands, tens of thousands of young, a lot of them were college students, basically young children, basically, against British regulars. And it was just a disaster. It was so bad they called it the Kindermorden, the death of the children. So there's a
Oh,
there's
wow.
a cemetery where there's these massive black stone kiosks, like not kiosks. It's not like a booth at a zoo or something. Cairns is the word I'm thinking of, like stone cairns, and each one has the names of I can't remember however many thousand German soldiers who were killed in this battle. And
Oh,
I'd like to go
shit.
there because people don't really go to German cemeteries over there. They're very dark and very sad and very solemn because it wasn't their fault,
No.
right? And they're just students, right? So I thought as a student of history, it was my duty if I go over there to pay respects to these children who were killed by basically the Kaiser who went power hungry.
Hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
See, my family served no more than the World War II. That's at least on my dad's side, served World War II was my dad's dad, and because none of the other family could serve because they're all from Hungary. So they didn't, they came in, they didn't fight in World War I, because it was between World War II and World War I that they came over from Hungary.
Yeah.
Now I tell you though, I would love to go to Pearl Harbor. I would love to go there. It'd be
I
awesome.
would.
I would love to visit Pearl Harbor. That's one of the sites I would like to see.
I would like. I hope
I
you
have
went there.
been there.
You've been to Pearl Harbor site? Oh, that's cool. There's apparently these, like, you can see underwater the boats.
Yeah,
Like,
Arizona.
there's like glass or whatever.
Oh no, it's not. There's no glass.
You can just look in and see it.
Yeah, you could literally jump off of there and hit the top of the boat.
Chris, if you're sensitive, you can feel the fucking
Oh, yeah.
pain those sailors went through.
Oh, I believe it.
I'm going to show
A
you.
lot of
some-
them were sleeping, weren't they, when this started? A lot of them were.
Yeah.
When the bombing started, they were asleep.
It was a complete surprise attack.
Oh, sweet, Donna.
Also, I'm going to show you some more on Andersonville Prison. sling blade.
Mhm.
I'm going to show you what it looks like. Go ahead, Chris, and share that for me.
Yeah,
Oh,
let them see
sure.
what. Yeah, let them see what it looks like.
Oh, please. Oh, that's cool.
That's actual during the Civil War.
Yeah. Is that the first phase or second, or third phase?
That's the whole camp.
Okay, so that would be third phase.
Oh, that's like a military camp from Civil
Yeah,
War?
it's a prison camp.
That's a
Yeah.
prison camp.
That Andersonville was a POW camp during the Civil War.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was the
Okay.
worst one. Here's some more of it.
Oh, wow.
That's the layout. That's how big it was.
Wow.
Okay, and that see. Okay, you got that square right there, but that's how the soldiers would go around. The Confederate soldiers go. There was towers there, and just right on the other side of the inside wall there was a rope, and there was a gap between the rope and that wall. That was called the dead zone. If you crossed that line and you went into that, you were automatically shot. And they would actually, they would entice them to come across that rope by holding food or whatever, you know. And they say, "Oh, we ain't gonna shoot you. It's okay. Come on, come on." And they would go try to get, and then bam, they'd pop them off. It was a
Oh, wow.
sporting game for them.
All right.
Wow.
Now, one of the other things I'm going to show you is.
Oh, we lost Mark.
I can't remember if it's after this picture or the next, but it's going to get graphic. And these are survivors of that prison
Oh.
camp.
There he is. What's up, buddy?
I've
Oh,
seen
good.
this, Sheriff.
This
I've
is-
seen these pictures before. They're famous. The ones you're going to show right now.
These are actual soldiers from this camp.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Oh yeah.
Great. Chris, these pictures are famous. I've seen these pictures over and over again.
They starved them to death, it looks like.
Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible.
Oh, it
Whose
gets
are
worse.
these? Now, these are Southern
Union.
prisoners or Union
Union.
prisoners?
Union prisoners.
It wouldn't have
Okay.
been that bad if it wasn't for the commandant of that prison.
There you go. This is literally how bad they look.
Wow, are you serious, Corn Pop?
Mhm.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah, it was a horrible prison.
They just didn't feed them.
Oh no, they fed them. They fed them, but they fought for their food.
Yep.
So some starved.
Shit. Hi,
Mhm.
Misty.
I'm missing.
Howdy,
Um,
Misty. And here's the thing: the commandant over that prison
Yeah.
was the only officer to ever be tried for a war crime.
Wow.
And he wasn't even he was an immigrant at that.
Oh
Yeah.
shit.
But now here's a story that'll make you really.
But
He
before you
wrote-
do, hold up. So he got tried for war crimes and tried to fish his way out of it and blame his higher up. He was only a captain.
Mhm.
They
Darn it.
literally took him to Washington D.C., tried him, found him guilty, and hung him
Wow.
for those crimes. He wrote a book, which is what Sling Blade's fixing to tell you. He did write a book.
Did he?
Yeah.
He
Alright.
wrote a book on how those type of prison camps should be done. Now, there was one person that got that book and was a major fan of this captain. His name was Adolf Hitler.
Oh boy. We all
Now,
know how that went.
right, that's how. If you notice, if you go and look at the concentration camps that the Nazis built, they're very similar to Andersonville. The only difference is instead of having wood going around, they have fence and barbed wire going around instead.
Wow.
So, but I mean, it's exactly the same where they have an inner wall and a dead zone and an outer wall. They had all that just like Andersonville.
And Chris, some say that book that commandant of the Civil War wrote and that Hitler got his hands on was the inspiration for Hitler's Mein Kampf later on.
Oh shit. I don't know. Doris has a question, but I don't know what that pertains to. All on the same day? Are we talking about?
They tried and hung him the same day. They did
the same day.
It wasn't a long drawn out thing.
No.
Yeah.
It was too much politics against him.
That's some. Does anybody have any
the thing
positive things in history?
There was too many witnesses against him. That's how come it didn't last. It didn't take long.
No, there's not, Chris. Well, I take that back.
Nothing positive ever happened in history, Slate. Not one thing.
Yeah.
Come on,
I'm trying to think of good stories.
The printing press, that was pretty revolutionary. I mean, of course, it led to counterfeiting and all kinds of other shit.
I guess the Allies finally getting involved, and
it's pretty dark.
It is.
My opinion would probably be maybe the Allies. That's the only thing positive I think is the Allies getting involved and actually, get into the prison camps the concentration camps, and
Well, here's something that'll make your mind wonder.
What's that?
Hitler was both a genius and an idiot.
Yeah, but
I heard
he was.
Well, towards the end, though, he had Alzheimer's. You could tell.
No, he didn't.
Thank you, Doris. He was awesome.
That's where you're wrong. He did not have no Alzheimer's.
No. Sorry, I get it. I mixed it up. No, he had Parkinson's.
Nope, he did not.
That's why his hand was shaking so bad.
No, he did not.
He was on crystal. He was on drugs.
Nope.
I believe
that wasn't what got him. That wasn't what got him.
Now, I do know this, though. What did fry his brain a good bit was the mustard gas that he breathed in during World War I.
No.
I thought he was a narcissist, to be myself.
Not even close.
Oh, I have no idea. What happened was
Hitler did absorb a good bit of mustard gas.
That ain't what. He had syphilis.
That's what Misty said. He had. Damn.
Syphilis is what got him, and that's why he was doing all the drugs and stuff, was to try to get it to quit.
Now, didn't he get done in by one of his officers or something?
It scrambled his brain. No, he didn't get done in by one of his officers.
So how did he meet his end? I mean,
he killed himself.
Well, supposedly. Yes. I mean,
Doris says a woman gave him syphilis.
Sheriff, I did the same thing. Quote, yeah, supposedly. No, there's no proof. There was no proof that Hitler actually killed himself or anything. All they did was...
The Russians found the body, let's put it that way.
Right. The Russians found the bodies, but they didn't want to say... They couldn't say when they got there, though, they would already been burnt. The Germans already burnt them. They killed themselves. He shot her. He shot himself. And they were in the bunker. They dragged out two bodies, supposedly two bodies that was theirs. They dragged their bodies out, and they put them in and they burned them. All right. So, but here's the thing, though.
Conspiracy.
Right.
Conspiracy theorists believe he's still alive.
Believe it or not,
he escaped or whatever.
Believe it or not, Corn Pop. They actually literally had a identical twin, basically, of him. So if anything happened, it would happen to him, not Hitler. So,
okay.
It was dead on ringer to him.
Sling, I'm going to stop you right there. Did you know that Hitler had a body double or two?
Yeah,
I'm sure he did.
That's what I just said.
A lot of people wanted his ass dead.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just saying. Oh,
and in that bunker when Valkyrie came about.
Oh yeah.
Eva.
He should have died.
Eva Braun. This woman's name. Eva Braun.
Okay.
Eva. However, yeah.
Yeah.
Depends on what
Paul thinks he fled to South America. Like there's theorists that think he left.
Well,
his grandson is alive.
I can tell you now, he's definitely not alive now, Donna. He's definitely dead of old age, at least.
He
But-
had like a
His
cousin
grandson,
nephew or something.
his grandson looks identical to him,
Oh shit,
just heavier set.
Hmm.
that's it.
But yeah, I mean,
Another story I like from history is and now we all know that B.D. Cooper is Loki now. We all know that he's come out and he's Loki and he flew up in this thing. But B.D. Cooper, that was always the story that interested me. He got on the plane and then he jumped off with all the money, and nobody ever caught him.
Yep.
We only found out. We only found out in the Loki series recently that it was Loki that actually
Right.
did that.
Yes,
No,
I
I'm
was,
kidding.
I was thinking I misheard you there. And I'm like, DB Cooper's Loki? What did I mean? Dude jumped into like 200 plus kilometer an hour winds.
Yeah, that's the Marvel nerd in me.
You know, all history fascinates me, even D.B. Cooper, but nothing fascinates me more than where Amelia Earhart went down.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Amelia Earhart?
That is still a mystery to this day.
I'm still convinced it was. I can't pronounce the word Nikamororo. I'm still convinced it was there. They did. Was it Murdoch? No, can't remember the name of the guy who found the Titanic. Did sonar scanning.
Ballard,
Ballard, yeah.
Ballard.
They did sonar scanning around the island that I'm referring to, but they never found anything. I could have been covered by shifting sand or whatever, you know.
Recently, satellite scans of those islands found an identical plane matching hers, tucked away between trees on an island.
Our next generation? I don't want to think about it.
A whole ton of chat messages.
that keeps me awake at night regularly, Donna, on that subject. Because pretty much we're just going to be SOL.
But Amelia Earhart, JFK, the Civil War, all facets of history fascinates me.
Oh yeah.
And I would love to investigate and check out all those historical spots, including the 6-foot depository in Dallas, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Now, see, my favorite wars that I like to do is Revolutionary War is okay. I'll do it. I didn't care for Korea.
World
War II, yes, that is my most favorite.
I'm sorry.
Next, and then in the top, Vietnam era. That's interesting, but not as much as than the Civil War, of course. That is the World War II and Civil War are my two favorite ones.
I've just always found the Civil War uninteresting, sad, and very conflicting,
Depressing, yeah.
Touchy. I can't get into it, and it's far removed from me. It's not closely related to Canadian history, and
well, that has a lot to do with it. I mean, too. I mean, you're not around it. You don't.
And like I said, I grew up 2 miles from Chickamauga.
Oh, yeah.
It's that far.
Yeah, I was about 15 minutes from there.
I mean, literally, I could ride my bicycle.
But I was close to. I was
agree,
actually
Doris.
close to Lookout Mountain, which was another bloodiest battle.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Battle above the clouds.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What Canadian? Do we have any Canadian? Like, I mean, I guess there was Churchill. He was Canadian, right?
Canadian who?
No, it was British.
Churchill was British.
British. What do we have Canadian generals or?
There's
figures
Arthur Currie in World War One, but he
He
died
did
before
something?
the Second War.
I like.
Arthur Currie was brilliant. He didn't come up with it, but he basically was the architect of Vimy Ridge, as far as the Canadian effort goes.
Vimy Ridge, that was a movie, right?
No,
Is that accurate?
it was a high point in the Arras offensive that the Canadians had tasked to take. British and the French were unable to take it.
Hey, go fish.
What's up, go
Toyman's
fish?
Bar and Grill's the Canadian.
Toyman is an awesome monarch of Canada. God love him. Yeah, we're just a whole lot going on there's got to be something cool Canada did.
Oh, there's lots of cool things Canada.
Beer and friggin' prohibition.
Not a lot of
come
war
on.
stuff.
Well, now here's the thing, though, Chris. Now
We're all a bunch of drunk, stealing drunk people.
No, during World War II, actually, Canada was in the battle before the U.S. was. So a lot of U.S. soldiers actually went and joined. They wanted to get in a fight before the U.S. did, but the U.S. was taking their time. So what they did was they went and joined the Canadian Royal Air Force. They joined them to go over and battle Germany and all. And then once the U.S. came in effect, they left that and went into the U.S. Air Force. Once the U.S. got involved with it. But so that's one thing they did. They pushed that up.
Now I know Canada has one of the best trained militaries in the world, but we're paddling rowboats and our tech or toys or whatever you want to call it are not as good. We're outdated. I'll call it outdated. Very outdated.
Well, I look at it this way. It depends on the person using that toy.
Mm-hmm.
That's true too.
But you got to figure
we're still flying helicopters from World War II. Like
the Belgians
working
down.
Yeah, the Hueys were good helicopters actually. Very good helicopters.
In World War II, they were good helicopters. Now
wait a minute though.
You're thinking Vietnam, Chris.
Vietnam.
There you go, Corn Pop.
Yeah,
Rush came from Canada.
There was no helicopter. There was no helicopters in World War II. People.
Hold on.
He's talking about the Sea King helicopters. I don't know if any of them are flying. They might be training vehicles, but nobody's taking a Sea King over.
Might have been dumb.
Don't forget, Triumph came from Canada too.
Oh, nice.
Now,
William Shatner.
Korea had helicopters.
Wayne Gretzky, let's go.
Good hockey players and comedians.
There's a good moment in history, and this is for Mark and Derek. In 1967, I believe, the Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup. We can all reflect and spread joy. That's it. We're not going to say nothing else. And that's giving Derek shit, Mark.
100 years.
Right?
Well, I like
there
the
you go.
Too, but their GM is useless.
But at least we've seen the Jays win in our lifetime. Right?
There was no helicopters in World War II.
Anyways, I'm good.
Helicopters came into war during Korea and Vietnam and Kurd.
No helicopters.
What Chris was referring to is the Sea King helicopters, which were first commissioned in Canada in '63, I think.
Yeah,
they're still around.
We're still flying them.
But the only helicopters that were in use in Vietnam were the Bao Hueys.
But Canada spends all their money on bike lanes and useless stuff.
Well, the Canadian military was involved in Vietnam, so I just mean like their Vietnam era.
Oh, hi, mother.
So they're 63. I don't know. I'm not a.
But
two sons.
Actually, both.
We haven't repped the motherland. We haven't spoken about Italy yet, Chris.
Italy? Oh yes. Viva la Italy. Let's go with that. I mean, Italy did some stuff. You got pasta and
that's Chinese.
Chinese. How about Pavarotti? Huh?
He's Chinese too. No, I'm just kidding.
No. No, Italy. I love it. Italy. That's our. That's mom's half of
our ancestor. Our nono was in World War II. He was a boy, and I guess he was kind of like just delivering.
Another one that
bringing wine and cigarettes to.
Way to go, nono!
Soldiers
kept the soldiers drunk and in cigarettes, not killing each other. That's cool.
Yeah, if they're calm and I don't know.
Wine? Wine is from Italy. Shout out, I think, or is wine French? Where did wine come first?
The Egyptians first made beer.
Well,
As
actually,
for wine, I'm not sure.
Egyptians, I think they did wine as well.
So, Chris, Mark,
believe,
what region in Italy do you guys
Doris said wine 3 times. I don't know. Can you field that, Mark, or does
Yeah,
Mom know that?
our nonna came from Sardinia.
have? Okay.
Then
And they
Mark's-
came over before the Second World War. So
Mark has
During
also
the second-
spent a lot of time in genealogy or like researching
oh
that
yeah,
kind
I
of
know
stuff too.
everything about our family.
So
tree.
it's
including some
interesting
things
family
that
trees.
was
So, Sardinia. So, you're not Calabrese, Siciliano.
No, no, and
that
our
was-
nonna is from
Don-
the backwoods, the
The
Appalachians. of
backwoods,
Italy.
the sticks.
No, he's from Senegalia, which is in the mountains in near Ancona.
Right?
Hmm.
We
And
didn't get tomatoes till after the
I have
New World.
friends that are Sicilian.
yeah, they're New World.
And believe it or not, potatoes were actually toxic.
Fishy's eating a sirloin Philly steak wrap. Ooh,
Tomatoes and potatoes are part of the nightshade family, which is
nightshade.
why-
Nice.
which is why people thought they were toxic at first. But interestingly enough, you can graft a tomato plant to a potato shoot and make up what I call a ketchup and fries plant.
Ketchup and fries plant.
True story.
Oh,
I don't know why you'd want to, but
No, I've gotten to where we had spicy tomatoes one time. Well, our tomato plants were just a tad too close to the jalapeno plants.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I had the same thing. I grew pie pumpkins and I grew a giant pumpkin plant and I fed it well fertilizer. I was going to try to make like a 30 or 50 pound pumpkin, right? And instead I got really small giant pumpkins, really bland giant pie pumpkins. So that's all right. It tasted fine. I would never make homemade pumpkin pie ever again, though. The amount of work is it's like $1 per can of the stuff.
Buy it from the can.
I've gonna say I've made sweet potato pie.
I knew Sheriff was gonna do that shit. We had that debate one night.
No, I like pumpkin pie. I like sweet potato pie. They both taste the same, just about.
Nope.
Nope. What?
Never
They
from
do
a
not.
can, right, Sheriff?
They do
Never
not.
from a
What?
can. They do not taste alike. No.
Well,
Definitely.
I
from a
hate.
can.
Trust me, I hate sweet potato pie.
Oh, I love it.
I've never had sweet potato pie.
Our aunt makes great. I only had it once, but makes excellent sweet potato pie.
well, I'm Ukrainian, Scottish, and Native American, so
I'm going to Fishy's house. She's gonna cook for us. She does everything from scratch. Let's go. We're all invited. No, I'm just kidding.
I have two types of cooking. I have the make everything from scratch, and then I have I've just come from work. I'm throwing hot dogs in the microwave,
Hell yeah.
and there is no in between.
There's no middle. They're
Um,
both very good. Thank you. See that? Pumpkin pie from a can is this is good.
Nope.
It'll do
No,
it'll do the trick.
No, it's not.
Come on now.
You won't have
Let's go.
the little pumpkin hairs in it. Nope.
He said nope.
Won't be the same. I'll take it and go through all the hard work to make pies.
I gotta stay away from
Oh,
pie
man.
anyway.
Ow!
Oh man.
Oh,
You alright?
yeah. Just these. Oh, that hurts.
Oh wow. Don't hurt yourself.
No, it's where they did that incisions at. That hurt. Oh God, it hurts.
They're both very good.
I've got about probably 5-inch incisions on one on my throat and one on my chest.
Ouch. What'd you do?
They had to put a device in my chest.
Oh, I'm sorry. You alright?
Yeah, I gotta wait
Yeah.
30 days, then they can turn it on. It has
That's
to,
good.
it has to attach itself and all before they can
Yeah.
turn it on. So once I do that, then I can turn it on. And I'll be good.
You'll be good to go.
I'll be good to go. Hopefully, yes. In theory. I love squash. I love squash pies. I love them.
There's a lot of farmers in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
What do we grow here? Apples. We got the fruit belt down the road.
I thought y'all did a lot of soybean stuff up there too.
There's soy. There's a lot of ginseng.
Do we still have those?
Where my wife's from?
Do we still have those dumb tariffs on dairy cows around here, where they can only produce so much and they got to dump the rest of it?
Supply management and quota system. So
All
you
the
have to buy
stupid shit.
quota for your certain amount of milk you can produce for your cow, and then the rest kind of goes down. It's to artificially keep the price up.
Are they allowed to give it away, or do they have to dump it?
No, they have to dump it. Do they?
That's
Well, I know they did here. They had to dump a lot of milk.
That sounds horrible. Like,
it's dumb. Historically, like lending into history, what you did when you have too much milk, you didn't sell it at a lower price. You turned it into cheese. You turned it into butter.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you do when you have a surplus of milk. So if you look at places like I think it's New Zealand that export, they do that. They don't have. I think it's in New Zealand or Australia where instead of supply management, they just make a lot of cheese. They export a ton of dairy.
Shit.
But the concern in Canada is that there are different rules in the States. And there's certain things that they can add to their dairy products that we don't want in ours. So,
Fishy, can you drop your
that's
link?
what they're worried about. But
I love sunflower seeds.
I'm gonna pin your link to the top.
Actually, I like sunflower seeds better than I do pumpkin seeds better than I do sunflower seeds.
Pumpkin seeds are high in magnesium, which is very important to men, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's all right. I think that's a good thing.
I guess.
Yeah.
I Googled it once.
A lot of time on your hands, huh?
I went from a construction job, made 25,000 steps a day, like hard labor. And people always said, "How did you enjoy that?" And I'm like, "Well, there's a reason that construction laborers, historically speaking, were slaves, because it's awful." And I know slaves didn't build the pyramids, but that's the joke, anyway. But especially when you're paid what I mean and buy your own tools.
Actually,
but now, sorry, now I'm a crane driver, so I got to stay away from pumpkin pie and.
Wait a minute! You're a crane operator.
Oh, I don't know. It's my jam.
What are you on?
Working a steel.
No.
place.
What's your crane?
What crane? Drive gantries and overheads. Like not like cranes like at the docks, but I'm not sure what the technical term is.
You don't drive any track ones then?
Any what?
You don't. Yeah, tracked.
Track.
Yeah, like a lever.
I'm not sure the technical terms, I'm afraid.
Track. The track. They have tracks on them. The cranes have tracks on them, so they can move around.
Yeah. So the cranes I drive are on a rolling base, and there's different types of cranes I drive. There's a rolling base with a track through the warehouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the sling hangs from the truss that's kind of between the wall and the.
You do overhead. You do overhead cranes, then.
Oh yeah. Overhead.
Okay. Yeah. See, I'm worked in construction. I was actually a off-road forklift operator, but I could run all those machines, but the crane. I hadn't made it to crane, but we had the big cranes there that were, they had the tracks where we could move them from one place to another.
Yeah.
Now,
oh shoot!
But the one crane we had out there, we called it Old Blue, but Big Blue, but they wanted to change the name because of the crane that fell on the top of the stadium was called Big Blue. But they called it Big Blue because it was so massive. The counterweight to this crane is so massive and it can lift so much weight. It didn't, usually they have like stacks of blocks as counterweights in the back, right?
Yeah.
No, this actually had a pole that went from the top of the beam at the top all the way down to the ground, and they have a pivot point on it. The Earth was its counterweight.
Okay.
They put a 6-story. They dug a 6-story hole, poured 6 stories of concrete in there as its counterweight.
Oh shit!
That thing held the world record of lifting.
Oh, that's awesome.
Fishy.
The most
got your
accurate
link,
is
Fishy?
it's 100,000. It's most of it. But I've never lifted that amount. Maybe 80. Maybe.
Real folks, I'm gonna drop out.
Are you leaving, Sheriff?
Yes.
I gotta
All
go
right, my
soon,
friend.
actually.
Y'all take care. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here, sir. It's always
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.
For having me. We'll see y'all later.
Jackass.
See you, Sheriff.
Oh shit! What a guy. Oh man. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't
If I'd
touch
known
on.
you were gonna throw Civil War history at me, I would have been like, how about you guys tell me when?
I didn't know where they were gonna go today.
No, I didn't know where I was gonna go. I'm just not knowledgeable. It's like asking a botanist about rocks.
Here's the thing, though.
It's all good.
We're used to because we're in the middle of it. We grew up around it. Where you didn't. You're from Canada. You didn't have to grow up around that history or anything like that. So yeah, of course you're not gonna be.
But we're not. Yeah, but Sting, we're not fucking ignorant or naive to what happened in the States.
Well,
No.
I'm not saying that's not what I'm saying at all. And I know, Mark, you didn't get that from me, did you?
No. Like I love talking about the American Revolution. I just have such a conflicting view of most Americans on the subject.
Yeah, it's just. So I mean, it's just that, of course, y'all aren't going to understand it as much because one, it didn't play a whole lot in y'all's history.
No.
Where ours it did. It determined how we were going to live. I mean, think about it. We could be right now. I could not be. I very well wouldn't have been in. I would not be in if the war went the way it could have gone. I would not be in the United States of America right now.
Yeah, that's it.
My state would be in the Confederate States. But
all right, Doris. Much love, Doris.
But no, Mark, you said that slaves didn't build the pyramids.
The pyramids were built by, well, it depends on what pyramids, but in Egypt, the pyramids were built by skilled laborers who were well paid.
Well, actually, I was going to say, no, they actually did use slaves to build them. They used Hebrew slaves to build those temples.
Sorry, the audio is like buzzing. I can't. Hold on. Let me shift my audio setting.
It might be because I'm slurring real bad.
That's all right.
I'm slurring real bad. My tongue is still swollen.
No, it was buzzing. It was a technical thing. I didn't hear what you said.
What was I saying? Oh, what was I talking about?
We're Egyptian pyramids. I'm sure slaves were present, but
yes, they were. They were actually primarily the ones that built the pyramids. Really, actually. But also they did have the masons in there as well. The masonries in there as well.
That makes my joke even more effective then. Sorry, speaking of subject of jokes, I knew a guy who studied Egypt. He was going to study Egyptology in university and couldn't find a job. So he went and got his master's. And then he did that so he could teach Egyptology. He's literally in a pyramid scheme. Nothing. Well, I'll let myself out.
I'm much longer. I'm about to go back to sleep again.
Yeah, I gotta go and I do car stuff.
I can't believe I've been up this long. No, I've been only up for maybe an hour or two. Well, actually, I have been up for about maybe an hour. Um, I've been sleeping a lot. Well, between the beds and all, that's making me sleepy.
All right, Mark, Chris, thing. I'm gonna head off here for. If you guys are gonna be back on later, I'll see you. I got stuff to do around my place and some research to do.
All right.
Okay.
See you, Derek.
See ya.
I don't know.
There were 3. I won't go quite yet. I just got to make it to the car shop at some point.
Oh, what you gotta do?
Yeah, I'm coming off night, so I feel what you're saying about sleep. Well, should we tie it up then, or?
I don't know. Where did Chris go? Did Chris go? Ah.
You did. I don't know.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. I'm that tired. I'm about ready to go. This thing's kicking my butt.
There's a story I wanted to share earlier. I don't know if anyone's still listening, but most favorite moments in history. And I shared the one about Lundy's Lane, about experiencing the dehydration and that. But there was one I was volunteering at Brock's archives, Brock University's archives, and I cataloged this letter written by an American officer during the War of 1812 at Sackett's Harbor in New York. I don't think it's called Sackett's Harbor anymore. And it was impossible to read. I don't know if anyone's ever tried to read old handwriting, but it took me forever. And at the end, the last line made me crack up, because the last line said, "I apologize for the miserable scrawl, but it's far too cold to write in a fair hand." And I thought that was funny, because he's like apologizing to me 200 years later. Sorry that you had to spend 3 hours transcribing this letter, but it's really cold. I just thought that was a fun experience.
Mm-hmm.
History just leaps out.
Now, I tell you what, talking about. Now, there was one point in World War II, WW1. My W's are not wanting to work on me. It's during was it Christmas, and they literally stopped fighting, and this was at the worst place there was, literally. I forgot exactly which area it was, but it was known as the war. You weren't going to survive it, but they literally stopped the war Christmas Eve night at midnight. They stopped fighting, and they all met right there in the center of the dead zone. And they sung Christmas carols, and they exchanged things like between chocolates to cigarettes to.
Sorry, guys, I'm back.
Whatever, and then once after that, then they went right back to fighting again.
Maybe.
You know what happened the next Christmas to ensure that Christmas truce didn't happen? The British launched, I believe it was 24-hour artillery barrage, the German line.
Oh, no way.
Just to make sure that no Christmas truces happened.
That was messed up.
Good old British. That's what you get when you have a army run by a small group of upper class twits.
Mm-hmm.
Bucky, bucky, buck, buck. Bucky, bucky, buck, buck. Buck, 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 bucky, buck, buck.
Where we're from, I always like to play the spoiler when there's a popular historical belief. As long as it's not too touchy or controversial, I like to play the spoiler and go, but actually, I'm that guy. Right? Not to correct someone's fact, but just to introduce something into the equation, just to mess them up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Like where we're from in Southern Ontario, there's Sir Isaac Brock, who was they called him the hero of Upper Canada, who, they took Detroit without firing a shot. They didn't. There was an artillery barrage. And he's revered as this great general, right? But the reason he died is because he screwed up and accidentally left the flank unprotected, and the British took sort of high ground at Queenston because of him. So he was just trying to like quickly fix his mistake. There was a fisherman's path, and the Americans were able to flank Queenston and take the heights. And he was convinced they were going to cross from Fort Niagara in New York. Instead, they crossed from Lewiston. So
you got it wrong.
Anyway.
Well, that's cool. Well, that's not cool, but
no.
Yeah, that's cool.
Or like I mentioned earlier, Vimy Ridge. We took Vimy Ridge. Well, yeah, but it was British artillery, and they didn't keep it. Or like what else? What else do people believe? The American Revolution. I'll have a whole tons of can of worms about the American Revolution. You want a fun story? Look up the Battle of Jumonville Glen.
What's that
That
one?
started the 7 Years' War. Which was the war that where at the end of the war the British conquered Canada from the French. But that war, paying for that war, kind of led to the American Revolution because the British needed to raise taxes to pay for the war. But you know who started that war at Jumonville Glen? George Washington. Kind of an interesting thing.
That is cool.
Fought a war
George Washington started
taxes. He fought an entire war protesting taxes that were levied to pay for the war that he himself started.
Wow.
Anyway.
Wow. Good Chuck. We're joined today, guys. Chuck, this is my baby brother. You know, Sling. We had Sheriff. We've been talking about history and stuff.
Yep.
But this is definitely we're gonna have to revisit this.
Yeah,
maybe
definitely.
have a history talk number 2 if Mark wants to come back, and maybe we'll get into something in his wheelhouse. What do you think? I know you were saying, Civil War wasn't your strong suit, or
almost nothing. There was the North, there was the South.
You did all right.
Slavery, it ended.
Slavery, it ended.
Actually, here's the thing, though. Did you know that slavery had nothing to do with the Civil War? Nothing.
Yes,
Absolutely.
that's an incorrect statement that Sheriff said earlier.
Yep. I actually have a book.
It's like saying monarchy had nothing to do with the First World War.
Now, see, I have a book that actually has the copy of the actual letter that Lincoln sent, stating he doesn't care about the slavery. He just didn't want to lose the South because they had all the text. They had all the material.
Mm-hmm.
North had the textiles. We had the raw material. We had the cotton. We had tobacco. We had this. We had that. We had it all. But
Lincoln said he was fighting to preserve the Union.
Right.
But the reality is, in fighting the Civil War, the North was able to cripple and kind of force to surrender states that believed in the institution of slavery. Slavery existed in the North, but to a large extent, it had been eradicated or was in the process of becoming eradicated.
Right. But here's the thing,
So,
though. Now, yeah, definitely. I mean, but the thing is, though, yes, he was trying to preserve the Union, but he sat there and said that the whole time. That's why he was wanting. He knew he was going to have to go to battle, and he kept saying, "We need to go to war. We need to stop this. We need to preserve the Union." And the people, the high people in his cabinet and everything, they said, "Screw it. Let them have it. We don't care." And he's like, well, okay, so nobody was going with him to support him on that war to preserve the Union. So he had to think of a way, and he said, well, what's one thing that everybody has in common that they don't really like? And he said, slavery. So that's when slavery came into effect of the Civil War. If he hadn't brought that up, it would have never happened. The war would have never happened.
No.
Because the people, his cabinetry people, the people in the Congress, the people in they would not have let him do it just to preserve the Union. They didn't care. So,
Way cool.
um,
Heck yeah.
What I find is, and I don't mean any offense to this, a lot of people in the South believe that slavery was not involved, and a lot of the people in universities don't.
Huh.
And I find that when you look at records and you look at stuff, everyone has a bias, right?
Yeah.
And part of critical analysis is looking past that bias, trying to figure out what motivated the people who acted, who wrote those documents and were recorded in various ways.
Mhm.
So you could find a letter between someone and someone else that suggests they acted in a certain way, but really they were just that was the context of the moment. Columbus's letters, I'm a little more familiar with, is an example of this. He writes to the Vatican. Columbus was not religious, didn't care about religion. He wanted the Vatican to fund his next journey into the New World. So he's talking about, oh yes, I believe in, and we can convert people, and he didn't care about that stuff. He just wanted to, kill and subjugate and get power, and he just needed the Vatican to do it. I have a feeling that that's a lot to do with the subject of slavery in the Civil War. In trying to convince fellow politicians, oh, we need support for this war, maybe Lincoln said, hey, I don't care about that. It's all about the Union.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a lot to do with it. It's a lot of times you can't read what people have written necessarily as true, especially politicians. But what I'm looking at it, from my perspective, what I'm looking at it is, in defeating the Confederates, it eradicated slavery. The people, the soldiers themselves fought for to preserve slavery, to preserve the power that be. Maybe individual generals believed otherwise, but we're talking institution-wise.
now,
And it's just.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, though. I mean, we can go down a really deep rabbit hole with this if you ain't careful. Okay. It's a very in-depth subject from one war. But no, even the South really said they didn't care. They were actually about to free the slaves anyway. They were. They were in during the war. They told the Union soldiers, "We're not fighting for slaves. Why do we fight for them? Who cares about them? We want to fight for our land. We want to fight for our rights to live on our own.
Our right to do what?
Our right to live on our own, do as we please, not be controlled by a government."
And what they pleased involved slaves.
No, they were actually already starting fixing. Well, here's the thing, though. Why was there? There was actually slaves that fought in the Confederate Army and the Union Army.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were slaves that did a lot of things I'm sure they didn't want to do.
No, they volunteered.
They were.
Actually, no, they volunteered to fight. They volunteered.
Voluntold, I would say.
No, they weren't forced. They volunteered to fight it. Like I said, this is a very, very deep rabbit hole. Very deep rabbit hole. It's very in depth and stuff. So,
I just don't know how you could look at.
Well, was slavery bad? Yes, of course.
It's black and white.
Well, slavery was bad. Yes, but was that the principle? No, it was the other principles. I know. Even the Union armies were saying, "Why are we fighting for the slaves? We don't care." Even the Union armies were saying, "We do not care about them. Screw them. Let them do what they want." They said, I'm not laying my life down for a slave. So, I mean, that's the whole thing. It was never really principled around the slaves. It was principled about the land. He wanted to have the land because why? Because we did. We had the natural resources. We had the tobacco. We had the cotton. We had all the plants. We had everything down here. They had, yes, they had the mills up there. But we also had one big thing down here that they didn't have. We had a huge gunpowder works here. All right. So we had a lot down here. A lot of the gunpowder was made down here. So, he wanted to preserve that. He wanted to keep the Confederate side into the with the Union, because he knew if he lost that, the Union it'd be weak, because they wouldn't have the material to run through the textiles. We controlled them. We could starve the Union. We could have done this to the Union. All of that. Why? Because we had all the natural resources that they didn't have up there. So, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, like I said, man. Like I said, it could get very, very in depth and very, very rabbit holey quick, Mark, because this is a really in depth. I mean, unless you've been, reading on it for years, and you actually go to the stuff that's not whitewashed either. There's a lot of stuff that's whitewashed out, which I was able to, because I was able to actually get authentic books. I've seen authentic copies of the books. I grew up on the Civil War with my dad. My dad did. I mean, heck, my family served in it. So I mean, I've always studied the Civil War. That was my most favorite one to study, is that one.
Chris, my phone is going to die here. I'm at 2%.
Okay, bud. Okay, well,
we'll have to leave it on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, we're gonna end this. Let everybody get on with their afternoon. And Mark, I appreciate you being here. Hopefully, you'll join us again for History Talk.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was nice to meet you, Mark.
It's been a blast.
It's been a
good chat. We had a good. It's been a good day. Y'all, we're going to Go Fishies at 4:00 Eastern for her show and birthday celebration for Wicked. But that is cake.
I gotta take some. I'm hurting again. So I have to take
all right, guys. I'll let you guys.
Everyone.
Bye, guys. All right.
We're going down.
I'm gonna take off out of here for a little bit, guys. Like I said, I pinned. We got Fishy's link pinned at the top there. We're gonna be there for 4. If y'all can make it, that'd be swell. I'll see you there, and I'll see you tonight. And it's also giveaway day at Fishy's Pond over there. So let's thanks, Mom. Yeah. So y'all have a good day, and we'll see you later on tonight. Hopefully we'll see you at Fishy's at 4. We'll see you around. Thank you, Sling.
Hello.
Sheriff, Derek. Catch y'all later. Bye.
Bye, y'all. See you, Chris.